Governor Andrew Cuomo. He's been in some hot water for a long time with allegations of sexual harassment coming out of his office. We've seen a lot of the photographs. Very handsy gentleman, or not, somebody who is a governor in a position of power, and allegedly over the last years, decades, he was being very handsy with people who worked for him. And so this has been an ongoing problem. And we've gone through a lot of these different allegations from many of the different victims who have sort of come forward and made their claims. And what happened with all of it? Where'd it go? Kind of got swept under the rug. Kind of funny. But now, Attorney General Letitia James, she's back on it. We spent a lot of time talking about Letitia James, so we're not going to do much of a recap on her, but a quick recall. She was the same attorney general who sort of went after the Rochester police. Remember, the Rochester police were the same police agency that pepper sprayed that I think she was 14-year-old African-American girl. Also the same police force that sort of did that body plank on Daniel Prude for about 2.5 minutes, collapsed his entire head, neck in on it itself, and then he died later in the hospital. And so some problems going on with the Rochester police. Letitia James, she did this big investigation, wrote a big fat stinking report that had nothing in it other than it was like a book report. She just went through and said, hey, this is what happened, and the character gave this to somebody else. And so many of us were scratching our heads and saying, so what? What are you going to do about it? You have this going on in your state. You're the attorney general. Can you fix it or not? And so nothing really came of that. And so now we've got a new report out. It's something like another 168 pages of a book report from the New York Attorney General going after Cuomo. And so we're going to go into this. I've got a couple clips. The way that I want to break down this segment, we're going to hear from Letitia James, and then we're going to start to go through the report. As I mentioned, it's 168 pages, so we're not going to go through it entirely. But I have some clips, some excerpts from a couple of the key alleged victims that we are going to take a look at. And then we're going to compare and contrast that, because Governor Cuomo came out and he gave us his response and basically said, I'm not doing anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong, dang it, and I'm not stepping down. And here's some evidence to back that up. So we're going to show you that as well. So without any further ado, let's hear from Miss Letitia James before we start getting into some factual review and some analysis here. Here she is today, and I want to just kind of walk you through this very solemn, very somber event. Watch what happens here as she takes the stage, right? And there's a big sort of lead up to this. Very, very serious. Here we can hear her now. Going to be addressing the media.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
I'm joined here today by Ann Clark and June Kim, the two lead attorneys who were designated as special deputies to the Attorney General's office to announce the findings of their investigation into allegations of sexual harassment made against Governor Andrew Cuomo.
Yes.
I'll make a brief statement and then turn it over to Ms. Clark and to Mr. Kim, who will delve into the investigation's findings.
Yes, go ahead. We're ready.
The independent investigation has concluded.
Yes.
That Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women.
What?
And in doing so violated federal and state law.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding me.
Specifically, the investigation found that Governor Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed current and former New York State employees by engaging in unwelcome and non-consensual touching and making numerous offensive comments of a suggestive and sexual nature that created a hostile work environment for women.
All right, okay. So there you go. So that's Letitia James, right? And it's the same stuff that we heard previously. Now, listen, I am not somebody who thinks that Andrew Cuomo is a saint or a savior or somebody that should escape culpability here. He's obviously not an estimable man, right? Clearly, we've seen that from all of the allegations that come out. But we also got to be very careful here, right? We've seen this sort of this sword of claims of sexual harassment be used all over the country for all sorts of different people. And it sort of wiped people off or attempted to wipe people off of the board many, many times. Specifically, I'm talking about Judge Kavanaugh, right? Judge Kavanaugh was somebody who, they brought out these 30-year-old sexual harassment, sexual, assault allegations, and they tried to stop him from getting on the Supreme Court as a result of this. And so you can easily see how all of these sexual assault allegations, sexual harassment allegations can be turned into political weapons. It happens all the time. And it happens on both sides of the aisle, right? Both parties are responsible for this. The Democrats wanted to do it with Donald Trump with the grab him by the, whatever thing. And the Republicans were doing it with creepy Joe Biden, sniffing kids and stuff like that. So, right, it goes both ways. And the important part that I want to be sure that we're clear on here is that if they're going to bring in the legal system on these allegations, they better have some evidence and they better put their money where their mouth is, and they better be able to justify the claims. I do not like political smears from anybody if it's going to sort of lead to criminal charges. The politicization of our justice system is abhorrent and it should never happen. This woman, Letitia James, is a political actor. We already know that, right? And so I'm not here trying to defend Cuomo, but we got to know who we're talking about and ask ourselves about the veracity, the credibility of the report that's coming out of her office. This is the same woman that we've talked about on the channel who said specifically that she was running for office to go and prosecute Donald Trump, right? She campaigned on that, and she has that weird facial thing. She gets so animated when she's talking about Donald Trump that she starts, sort of that illegitimate president is something that she did. We played that clip here like 5 times. It's hysterical. She can't contain her face because it is so, she's so passionate about removing Donald Trump. So it's the same person, right? Somebody with a political vendetta, somebody who is, feigning this neutral arbiter of justice as the New York Attorney General when she's anything but. It's not even remotely close. She prosecutes her political enemies. She campaigns on it. And we all know, I mean, you can sort of speculate where this is going, that she's running for governor at some point. And so how effective, how convenient that she's just going to simply remove the biggest impediment to her succeeding into the governor's mansion, which is her toughest opponent, Andrew Cuomo. So her office comes out and they release a 168-page report, which we are going to go through. I am not trying to defend Cuomo, right? He's a garbage human being, no question about it. He, in my opinion, the bigger issue with Cuomo is the fact that he murdered arguably manslaughtered thousands of New York senior citizens, right? So that is not being investigated by the DOJ. The sexual harassment stuff, though, we're making a big deal about it. So we got to keep our eye on the ball here. And the bigger question that I have is, what are they going to do about this? So what, Letitia James? So keep this in mind as we go through this analysis. Are you going to be recommending criminal charges? Are you going to send this over to a grand jury so that they can move forward and determine whether there's probable cause for further criminal charges? Are you endorsing civil lawsuits against Cuomo? Do you think that he should be impeached? Are you demanding his resignation? Do you think that he should be censured or admonished from some whatever organization? So what? What are we going to do about this next? Because Governor Cuomo, as much of a piece of work as that guy is, he's still entitled to due process and the presumption of innocence. And the state has the burden here. So if the government's going to come out, and it is right now, the New York Attorney General, and they're going to make these claims, they better be substantive. Because right now, well, we can go through it and then you can make the judge of this. We've seen a lot of the prior claims, inappropriate touching or stupid, disgusting, perverted comments from him. But does that, elevate to criminality? And was this sort of stuff that everybody knew about and just, allowed to happen under the radar until Cuomo became no longer useful anymore? And so then we start to see this political prosecution bubble up in order to remove an unwanted actor from the board. So there's a lot of questions I have about this. Let's see what the actual report here says. So first and foremost, this is the title page. Released August 3rd, as we see here. And Letitia James came out and she was referencing these other two people here, Ann Clark, Yannick Grant, coming out of the state of New York Attorney General's office. And you notice it's a big report, 168 pages. So again, not going to go through it in its entirety, but we can take a look at the table of contents. This is where they get their authority to do this. This is the procedure that they're going to follow. And then here are some factual findings. So they're just going to go through all the documents or all the different claims. And we're not going to focus on all of them. You can see there are a lot of them. State entity employee 1, employee 2. We got Caitlin. We have Anna Liss. We have Alyssa McGrath. Lindsay Boyland, a lot of them, right? A lot of different names here. We're going to be focused on executive assistant number 1. We're going to spend some time talking about Charlotte Bennett. And then we have Anna Ruch down here, who doesn't seem like she was an actual employee, but this was the woman whose picture was sort of spread all around the internet. Very problematic picture. So they're also talking about the governor and his response, which we're going to get into, the culture and the practice of the executive chamber, relevant law, and then we have the investigation's conclusions. The governor engaged in conduct that constituted sexual harassment. Okay, under federal law and state law. So are you going to file charges or what are you going to do? The executive chamber failed to investigate allegations. So, all right, are you going to make recommendations on that? The executive chamber handling of Charlotte Bennett's complaints, they've got problems with that, along with other complaints. All right, and they have a problem with the culture over there. They give us a conclusion, which we're going to check into. So, again, it's a very giant book report, 168 pages. Is anything going to happen here? We already know. There's no spoiler here. Governor Cuomo is not resigning, right? He hasn't resigned thus far. He's not going to be resigning here. And we'll see where this goes. Let's take a look now. The way that I wanted to break this down, we're going to hear from Letitia James. Then we're also going to hear from Governor Cuomo. We got a rule here on this channel as well that if allegations are being made or if one party is making a motion, if they're moving, in this case, Letitia James is saying, you, Governor Cuomo, are a sexual harasser. She's got the burden. She's got to bring all the evidence, and the evidence that she brings, because we're sort of viewing this, we want to sort of be as neutral as we can. We want to view this in a light most favorable to Cuomo. So let's say Cuomo's the defendant here. These accusations are being made his direction. Let's look at it in that regard. And again, we're asking ourselves, so what? Letitia James, you got 168 pages of documents. So what? Is anything else going to happen here? Criminal charges, civil suits? Are you going to turn this over to some, advisory board, some oversight committee somewhere, or not? Here she gives us an introduction. This is the executive summary. So this is a high-level overview of what we've got going on here. The investigators who've been appointed to investigate Cuomo conclude the governor engaged in conduct constituting sexual harassment under federal law and New York state law, which is a big claim. So she now has causes of action under those claims. Specifically, we find he sexually harassed a number of current and former state employees, among other things, engaging in unwelcome and non-consensual touching, as well as making numerous offensive comments of a suggestive and sexual nature, created a hostile work environment for women, right? So that sounds like very specific language that Letitia James is using in order to enable them to bring claims under a sexual harassment statute. Our investigation revealed that the governor's sexual harassing behavior was not limited to members of his own staff, also included other state employees, as well as a state trooper on protective detail. We also conclude that the culture is filled with fear and intimidation, frequent flirtations, gender-based comment, sexual harassment occurs and persists, and all of the follow-ups to this have been improper and inadequate. So in other words, we're making all these claims to the governor's office. We've seen multiple people complain about this, and they're not doing anything to respond. The responses are inadequate and they're improper. So that's sort of the introduction. That's what Letitia James is saying is going on. Let's see what Andrew Cuomo has to say. He took to the cameras today, and this is his response.
I want you to know directly from me that I never touched anyone inappropriately or made inappropriate sexual advances.
To Bill Clinton?
I am 63 years old. I've lived my entire adult life in public view. That is just not who I am. And that's not who I have ever been.
All right. He's a 60-year-old man, folks. Not who I am, not who I've ever been, right? A lot of that same stupid language that we hear all the time, that's just not who we are as America. That's just, we're better than that, America. That's just not in our soul. We hear that all the time. Well, I don't know. Okay, so that's his claim. I don't do that. That's not who I am. He's got a pretty good little video point here, some video evidence that we're going to get into near the end of this segment. But let's see what some more of the allegations are. We got Letitia James says you're a sexual harasser. He says, no, I'm not. This is the governor's evidence. Here's where she starts. I'm sorry, this is the evidence against the governor. Sexual harassing conduct. We've got a number of different people that we can jump in and take a look at, but we're going to start off by taking a look at executive assistant number 1. And this is fairly recent too, okay? This is late 2019, and this is after Harvey Weinstein. Remember, Harvey Weinstein was back in 2017. And so sort of the game kind of changed after that, right? The whole Me Too movement and all of this sort of, report. If anything like this is problematic, everybody was reporting everything, even if it seemed like it was, a stretch. So that's my first question is, why does this stuff take so long to come out these days? But of course, what do I know? I'm a white male. So we have the governor engaged in a pattern of inappropriate conduct with his executive assistant, who is a woman. Pattern of conduct included close and intimate hugs, kisses on the cheeks, forehead, and at least one kiss on the lips, touching and grabbing of her butt during hugs on one occasion while taking selfies with him. Comments and jokes by the governor about executive assistant's personal life and relationships, including calling her and another assistant mingle mamas. And so, when you hear words like that, you know that that's true, right? You know that somebody said that at some point, because mingle mamas. That's just like too good. You can't make that up. That's too good to be fictional. That's something that is real. Mingle mamas, including multiple times about whether she cheated or would cheat on her husband or help him find her a girlfriend, right? Totally inappropriate, not okay. Clearly, a butt touch during a hug, yeah, that would be assault in most cases. And so, the question is, why wasn't that reported, or what happened here? Offensive interactions culminated in an incident in a mansion in November 2020, so late 2019. The conduct started, goes all the way, sounds like over a year, to November 2020 during another close hug. So this woman keeps hugging him, apparently, reached under her blouse and grabbed her breast for a year. For over 3 months, she kept this groping incident to herself, planned to, quote, take it to the grave, but found herself becoming emotional while watching the governor deny. She confided in other colleagues who then reported it to the executive chamber. So, all right, so got it. So we have somebody here, that's what we're talking about, right? It's a different category of, it's not Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein was raping women. This is not okay. I'm not endorsing this, but it is not the same thing, right? It's a whole different thing. And this was something that lasted for a year, didn't report anything. And so the question is why? If you're a defendant, if you're a defense attorney, you're saying, okay, well, it sounds like you were sort of engaging in a lot of this, inappropriate jokes, all of these different things, and then something flipped and it was no longer appropriate. So that's how you would frame that. You would say, well, this was somebody, this was all sort of consensual, mutual stuff, inappropriate, sure, but I'm the governor of New York and we do things inappropriate here. And so whatever, right? That's their culture. And he can make excuses for that, as we will see him continue to do. But it's also, right, it's mingle mamas and hugs and butt touches, and we have an under the blouse touch of the nipple. I think I'm not sure if we can confirm that or not. A nipple touch, I don't know, but that's where you start to get into some of those assault charges that have a sexual connotation in nature when you start talking about breasts and things like that. Okay, executive assistant number one. That's what we've got. Charlotte Bennett now. Governor Cuomo responds to this one specifically. He says, listen, I know a lot of you are mad about Charlotte Bennett, and so I got to address that specifically. Let's see what Letitia James has to say and complain about this one. It says, in a series of conversations in 2020 with an aide, Charlotte Bennett, the governor made inappropriate comments. Again, talking about girlfriends for him, right? So he's got a bad joke or something like that. Inappropriate, not endorsing it. Willing to date someone who was as young as 22 years old. He knew that she was 25 at the time, right? Perverted, just, not appropriate. Asking her whether she wanted to be with older men. Saying during the pandemic that he was lonely and wanted to be touched, right? Asked whether Bennett was monogamous. Telling her that, talk about a tattoo, she should get it on her butt. Asking her if she had any piercings. Saying she wanted to ride his motorcycle into the mountains with a woman. Comments all came from the governor, and they're confirmed in text message exchanges that Bennett had with others, followed and coincided by discussions about the government with the governor about her having been a survivor of sexual assault. It made her extremely uncomfortable. Made her so uncomfortable that she told his chief of staff about it in June 2020. And remember this case? We talked about this one. It's coming back to me now. We talked about this. This was when she was actually working for him. They developed this relationship. After a long period of time, it gets uncomfortable. So she says, this is not appropriate. So I go to the governor's chief of staff. She says they moved her to a different position where she would not have to deal with the governor anymore. Did not report the allegations. State agency tasked with conducting an investigation did not follow that up. And senior staff, they instead implemented a rule where women were not to be left alone with the governor. So nobody reports any of this stuff. This is taking place in the executive branch, by the way. Right. So all of these people are supposed to be like public servants fighting for the little people out there. And they have a policy where they're keeping women away from the governor. OK. All right. So let's see what Governor Cuomo has to say about this. And I could be mistaken about that, Charlotte Bennett, but I think the move was sort of a promotion. Didn't they move her to like an environmental agency or something like that? It was like it was not just a lateral move. She actually got promoted or something. And so at the time we were saying, well, that doesn't make much sense. So she's very offended about the sexual harassment, but then he gives her a promotion. No problem. I'll take that. No problem at all. Happy to do that. Here is Governor Cuomo now talking about it.
There is one complaint that has been made that bothered me most. That was a complaint made by a young woman, Charlotte Bennett, who worked in my office. And it's important to me that you fully understand the situation. Charlotte worked in my office last year as an assistant. She was smart, talented, and eager to learn. She identified herself to me as a survivor of sexual assault. She said that she came to work in my administration because of all the progress we had made in fighting sexual assault. She talked about the personal trauma that she endured and how she was handling it.
Yeah.
I could see how it had affected her.
Yes,
I could see her pain.
Yes, that's true. Yes, we know. We know you could see her pain. Yes, because you were the person who was assaulting her, right? So she goes through it. He's making her extremely uncomfortable, but you see how he's reframing this. He's saying, oh, no, she's a sexual assault survivor, and so we were talking about sexual things, and, you know, I just wanted to help, and the emotions got the better of me. I'm not a predator at all, and you know, I'm somebody who's trying to help, and I probably shouldn't have gotten so close to somebody and talked about those issues. So poor Cuomo, you know, he just gets caught up in these things. He's just a misunderstood, creepy, you know, governor, and everybody was letting this all slide for a very long time until he no longer became useful. So, all right, we've got one more person we got to talk about here in Cuomo's reign of destruction. You remember this photo? This one was one that caught a lot of attention. Very, very horrendous photo. And so you're going to see, now I will tell you this, what Governor Cuomo does here is actually quite masterful. Watch what happens here. So we're going to spend some time on this. This woman's name is Anna Ruch, R-U-C-H, or Ruch, I'm not sure. This took place on September 14, 2019. So some time ago. And you're going to notice that we have a couple little, you know, interesting things going on, right? This woman over here, sort of shocked at what's going on. Don't know if she's responding to the Cuomo grab. This woman over here is also very shocked, going, what the heck is going on over here? And then this woman, you can see, you know, Anna is clearly disturbed, right? You can see that in her face. It does not look comfortable at all. Looks like she's, you know, sort of paralyzed with fear. I actually have a lot of empathy for her here. Looks very uncomfortable. Right, totally inappropriate. What he's doing now also looks very predatory, right? He's sort of got that lip furrowed underneath his upper lip there, just sort of like salivating, like, oh, I like what I see, or something like this, right? Very disgusting image. You can sort of see what is going through his mind, and it's disgusting and reprehensible. So let's go through and now talk about what happened here. And I want to show you what Governor Cuomo does. Very, very skilled. I'm not endorsing his conduct, but the way he's responding to this is quite good. Before we get there, let's talk about what Letitia James says. She says, back on September 14th, there was a wedding party. One of Governor's senior aides approached a guest. Her name was Anna Ruch, shook her hand, and then quickly moved his hands to her back, touching her bare skin. There was a cutout. Miss Ruch, feeling uncomfortable, grabbed the governor's wrist, removed his hand from her back. At that point, the governor remarked, wow, you're aggressive. After which the governor cupped her face in his hands and said, can I kiss you? Without waiting for a response, Miss Ruch tried to move and turn her face away. The governor kissed her left cheek. Pictures taken by her friend captured the governor's kiss and Miss Ruch's uncomfortable reaction, right? And that was that right there. So apparently he went over there, moved his hands to her back, touched her bare skin. She doesn't like it. He says, you're aggressive. Can I kiss you? And then we see what happens here. Right. So that's the rest of that. Now, Governor Cuomo, this is, I don't know if we talked about this last time, the last time we covered Miss Ruch's case, but he put together something that is pretty effective. Let's see if you buy it. The question is for you locals and YouTube. What do you think about this? Do you buy this explanation? Here is Governor Cuomo. Why, Governor Cuomo? Why did you do that to Miss Ruch, to Anna Ruch? Why did you put your hands on her face like that? We want answers.
I've been making the same gesture in public all my life. I actually learned it from my mother.
Oh, look at that.
And from my father. It is meant to convey warmth, nothing more. Indeed, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of photos of me using the exact same gesture.
Watch.
I do it with everyone. black and white, young and old, straight and LGBTQ, powerful people, friends, strangers, people who I meet on the street. After the event, the woman told the press that she took offense at the gesture. And for that, I apologize.
Whoa, that's pretty good. Pretty good there, Cuomo and legal counsel, whoever's working on that case. Pretty good, pretty effective. And remember, right, he's not trying to win you or me. He's not trying to bring us to his side. He knows he's lost us. We were all lost a long time ago. He is a creepy sexual predator, also somebody who's a narcissist and probably a sociopath as well, who is very okay with sort of just, sending COVID-infected senior citizens back into senior centers where other high-risk senior citizens are living, resulting in the deaths of thousands of people. And he just continues on with his business like it's nothing. It's not even anything to bat your eye at. But what happened here, quite effective. He's going through and he's trying to win the people over who are on the fence a little bit, right? You and I are gone. We've left a long time ago. No love for the Cuomo train at all. But what about the people in New York, the people who say, well, he did a pretty good job here and we're still watching CNN and reading the New York Times and we still kind of like the guy. What does he have to say? He comes out, he says, look, my mom grabbed me like this. My mom put her hands on my neck and my face. This is a symbol of love, of affection. And he goes around and he shows you Robert De Niro, Al Gore, and many of the other people in there. Not a lot of other 25-year-old younger women in wedding dresses in social events. We didn't see many of those other pictures that his team went and unearthed for us, but I'm guessing that they're out there. And Letitia James, her report actually details a lot more other victims. I think there's probably 7 or 8 or 10 other victims. And so the question, as I started out with at the beginning of this segment, so what? What happens? What are they going to do about it? Anything? Let's take a look at the conclusion here from Miss James. She says, upon completion of our independent investigations and the circumstances, we've reached the conclusion that he sexual harassed a number of people. We find this conduct and this pattern happen with others outside of state government as well. Okay, great. We also find that the chamber's response is also not appropriate. And in fact, it constitutes unlawful retaliation. And we conclude that the culture of fear and intimidation, blah, 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 contributed to the sexual harassment and overall hostile work environment in the executive chamber. That's it, folks. That's it. That's the end of the document. There's nothing left. That was page 168 or whatever. There's nothing else. So she wrote us a big book report, a big summary of what she found. She's the New York Attorney General. She could refer this over to a number of different agencies to move forward with legal action, but she's not. Maybe she will later. I doubt it. Is anything going to come of this? I doubt it, other than she's going to have a big dossier, a big file that she can refer back to when she runs for governor later down the line. So not a lot of new information here, kind of the same stuff. Cuomo's a creep show, no question about it. But is that going to be the end of him? In fact, he kind of doesn't even care about it. He was posting on Twitter. He's back to COVID already. So he posted this at 10:30 this morning after the report, after his response. He said, hey, here are the updates on the numbers. There were 5 people who got killed from COVID, so we're going to lock down everything again. That's Governor Cuomo. What's the media going to do with it? Anything? All right. What do you think about this? Let's take some questions quickly over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And then we'll also see if anything came in from YouTube. Not looking like it, but let's see what's coming in over here. Oh, you've been signed out. Okay. Let me figure this one out, folks. Let's see if I can make an adjustment on the fly. For some reason, my form is not up to date. So now I have to take a look at this button. All right. Let me make sure this screen is not showing anything publicly. I apologize for the little delay over here, but for some reason it logged me out. I thought I had this figured out. All right, so we've got responses coming in, and over here, queuing these up, folks. We've got a lot of questions coming in hot. Okay, so Cuomo's sexual harassment. All right, we're back in business. Let's see here. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Angel Blair is in the house on the Cuomo sexual harassment question. First one up is Angel Blair says, the left eats its own. What do you think of the ultimate outcome will be given your background in law and then from a context of your knowledge of government malfeasance? So I honestly, I don't think that anything's going to come of this with Cuomo. If you're asking about criminal charges, are they going to actually charge him criminally? On the face of it, I see some stuff that might be criminal, right? Certainly, if he is inappropriately touching a woman on her breast or really any inappropriate touching without consent could be an assault charge in a number of different ways. And if you have contact with, genitals or somebody's buttocks or somebody's, nipple, then that might be even more problematic. They can sort of take those out of a regular assault charge and shift those into a higher level offense that has some sexual connotation to it. And so I'm not a lawyer in New York, of course, but I'm going to guess that Letitia James could easily go through with a lot of these allegations and come up with enough probable cause to support filing a direct complaint, filing charges specifically, or at least enough to turn this over to a grand jury. My question then is, if she's got enough, if she's going to write a 168-page report, why is this not already with a grand jury? Maybe it is, right? Maybe all this is taking place behind the scenes, and maybe this was sort of the first domino in a long list of other dominoes. And so I could be premature. I am cognizant of that, right? There could be more that is coming, but I'm doubtful that there will be, because a lot of this stuff just doesn't rise to that level of, felony criminal prosecutions. Weinstein, absolutely, right? He was like literally raping women and threatening them all sorts of horrendous things, which are clearly criminal. But in a lot of these situations, it's kind of a he said, she said thing in many of them. And so, I'm not a, hashtag believe all women person. And so Governor Cuomo is going to get the same due process and the same ability to defend himself that I would want any person in this world to get, including Derek Chauvin, including you, including Donald Trump, or anybody else who's facing any allegations like this. And once his defense attorneys get in here, they're not, there's not enough here to substantiate really, really meaningful criminal charges, which is exactly why I think that Letitia James has not done anything with it. It's a political smear. That's essentially what this whole thing has been for a long time. And I don't say that, with glee, right? Cuomo's a terrible person. The DOJ is not investigating him for one of the biggest crimes of any elected politician in this country, or if not a crime, gross negligence to the point where maybe it in fact should be criminal. Because it was obvious that you should not send COVID-infected sick patients into nursing homes. That's insane. And he did it anyways. All right. I forgot Tuesdays are a little bit tight on time, so I got to pick up the pace on some of these. Kenny 1B says, Biden said Cuomo needs to resign. When your fellow groper says it, it's bad. Did he? I missed that. You know what Cuomo's going to say to this? So what? Not going anywhere. Why would he? He hasn't left yet. LT13 says the AG's dramatic reading of this was agonizing. She stretches out the S at the end of words, and it's over the top. Yeah, it's called chewing the scenery in Hollywood terms. We talk about that sometimes in the law, right? It's overacting, being melodramatic. Histrionics are some of the good synonyms for that. It is painful. It's clearly political. She knows it. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. Peely Wally says, hey, Rob, is the way she talks about Cuomo not just slanderous? Can he take action against them if no crime is found to have happened or can't be proved? Just ruining names is a disgrace. So, he's a public figure. I think she's done enough due diligence here that if he tries to sue her for, defamation or slander or libel or anything like that, he's not going to succeed, because he's not going to be able to show that she did any of this with actual malice. This is all part of her duties as an elected official, the New York Attorney General. And so she's not going to be able to, Cuomo's not going to be able to show that this was done with any malintent, which he would need to show in order to be successful in a claim like that. CNN reported at least there wasn't any rapes involved, and Cuomo did say she wanted his job. I always like to hear another view. So CNN doing cover for him already? All right, maybe that's the case. We have John Halgreen is here, said James has weaponized her office, and as long as she remains the New York AG's office, and all of its actions will be tainted. Yeah, she is a political person first and foremost. We know that. And so I know it's easy to sort of spike the ball on Cuomo, and you're going to see that in a lot of other places. But she's a partisan hack, right? This is not justice. This is partisan hackery. We got to call it out when it is what it is. We have, what about all of the Cuomo sexuals? Are they going to face shame? Also, in that report, we were getting a verification of those nipple rings. Asking for a friend. Oh my gosh. When we were listening to Cuomo talk, I looked over here on YouTube and somebody commented that. They said basically, Sarah Brown said that they confirmed that the nipple rings are a thing. So we've got multiple corroborations between locals and between YouTube. I think it was Sarah Brown. Shout out Sarah Brown for confirming now we have unity amongst we are crossing the streams to confirm that Cuomo has nipple rings. And I think 2 of them, to be fair about that. Bill Clinton's here says, he should have taken some moves out of my playbook. Works every time. Bill's in the house. We have another one from Bumma Lickett. Says, if Cuomo resigns, who takes over his place? Do New York residents get to vote for a new governor to replace him? I don't know. I don't know how that works. Or if it's like a deputy governor, or if they would have a sort of a recall or a special election or something like that, sort of like what we see in California. Funny stuff. We got Hunter Biden's here. We got Bill, Hunter, all of the people are coming out of the woodwork. Says, I love them kids. I love watching cuties. My hard drive is full. My dad, Hunter Biden quote says, my dad loves sniffing kids, which we know because we've seen a lot of those photographs all over the internet. Thunder7 says, hey, Rob, James couldn't care less about sexual harassment. Dems are just covering for Cuomo's real crime, which was murdering the elderly in nursing homes. It was done to make Trump look bad. I'm sure Cuomo will be forced to resign and the Dems can whitewash what they did to kill elderly people in blue states. That's kind of a good, I think, catchphrase maybe for the Republicans, right? At least we're not murdering your parents. At least we're not murdering your grandparents. Vote for us. That's the Republicans. We've got DK Poor says, does Cuomo have immunity as a governor that protects him from prosecution pending the time in his tenure? And if so, can Miss James go after him after office for jail time or settlement? So if he, it's not total immunity when we're talking about government officials. It's called qualified immunity. And so as long as they're acting within the confines of their duties, then they're protected from that. So this would be a police officer, chasing somebody down, shoots and kills them. Well, it was questionable. Maybe shouldn't have pulled the trigger on that one, but it's questionable. So you're going to be protected because you have qualified immunity. But if you sort of exceed the scope of your employment, if you exceed your permissible, allowable, actions, well, then that pulls you out of qualified immunity. So in this case, the framework would be much the same. If Cuomo is found to have done something criminally outside of the purview of his role as governor, then that would breach that immunity, and he would be able to be prosecuted criminally, civilly, whatever, across the board. We have Kareem165 says, seems to me when it comes to sexual accusations, men in general get convicted and put on the guillotine without ever getting a fair trial. Happens all the time. I've seen it happen many times, not on a national scale, but I'm talking about with our clients. Happens all the time. People lie all the time. They make up stuff for all sorts of different reasons. Happens very frequently. Todd Trout says, I'm older, so I'm not up to date with the new slang. What is a mingo mama? So I think it's a mingle mama. And quite frankly, I don't know what older means. I was going to say, I've never heard of a mingle mama either, but I'm not a 63-year-old man. So Todd, I don't know how old you are. If you're in your 50s or 60s, you would be sort of more closely aligned with Cuomo's generation. And I would expect you to know what a mingle mama is. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a New York thing. I don't know. New Yorkers out there, what are mingle mamas? I don't know what they are. And I'm not even going to have a follow-up comment to that because I was going to say something else about mingle mamas, but I'm not going to do that. We have John Halgreen is here, says police and fire suicide rates. Oh, wait, that's over to the next segment. So we'll get there. Let's cue that one up. I want to make sure I get to that one because that looks like a good one. Just give me a quick second, and we'll go to another question over here just so I can save that one so that we don't miss it. All right. Then we have a couple more on this topic. We have Screw Me Too says, the Me Too movement, very horrible movement, only used as a political weapon to extract resources. All Me Too allegations should not be deemed credible unless there is an immediate police report or overwhelming evidence such as a video recording. Regarding Andrew Cuomo as well, you can tell people who endorse me don't actually care. Yeah, so allegations from Joe Biden and Tara Reade, don't take them seriously, so screw me too. Yeah, it's especially post Harvey Weinstein, right? Sort of there was, 2017, there's sort of pre-Harvey and then there's post-Harvey. I think post-Harvey, there are less and less excuses for delaying the reporting. You got to report. All right. So you've got to report that. Okay. So we've got another one from DK Poor says, you ever wonder how effective Miss James' office is to find the, quote, dirt on Cuomo within a year, but after over 3 years, still nothing for Trump, not found even a slap on the wrist? The illegitimate president, according to Mrs. James. There's nothing in there for Trump, and she should drop it now. Yeah, it's a good one. Let's see. I got to pick up the pace, folks, so sorry if I don't get to your question. It says, Rob, always takes a lawyer twice as long or longer to do an investigation when you're paying them hourly. Everything with court drags on too long. We don't take hourly rates here. Did you know that? We do flat fees here. So you don't have to worry about any of that hourly stuff. All right, so I got to move on to the next segment, so I apologize if I missed your question. There were a ton of those here, but as we know, Tuesdays, I have a little bit of a compressed time schedule. So we got to continue on moving on. I appreciate all of those and all of your support at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Before you head out, I want to just remind you that I am a criminal defense lawyer here in Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, we've got a long history of helping good people facing criminal charges to find safety, clarity, and hope in their cases and beyond that in their lives. Our phone number for a free case evaluation is 480-787-0394. You can also find us online at www.rrlawaz.com. We can help with any type of criminal charge in the state of Arizona. Things like DUI, drug offenses, misdemeanor offenses. And we can also help with clearing up old case records, like expunging cases or making sure that you can restore your rights so that you can vote again or possess a firearm again or apply for some other federal benefits. We can remove mugshots off the internet. Basically, anytime that you or somebody you know or love is in trouble with the law in the state of Arizona, we have an amazing team of people. We would just love the opportunity to help. And our phone number, of course, 480-787-0394. And if you don't need any legal services, that's a very good thing. But you may be interested in some informational offerings so that you are prepared if you do have to deal with the police. And of course, I want to invite you to head on over to gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. You'll notice here, I've got several different trainings that are available, including the law enforcement interaction training. This is the 1, 2, 3 rule for dealing with the police. It's one rule you need, 2 questions that the police can ask of you, and 3 responses if they ask you a problematic question. So that's available now. You can also get a load at my personal productivity system here called Existence Systems. Fun little course. And then we have here, if you're a lawyer or a legal professional, be sure to check out this program. We are meeting twice every month. Again, all of this over at gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. And if none of that sounds any good to you, well, just go ahead and give us a follow, because I'm working on some other products and some other offerings. And of course, if you have not already done so, want to invite you one more time to head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's where you can support the show, and it's where we can connect. We've got monthly Zoom meetings and a lot of other goodies coming up. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for watching and for all of your love and support. I will see you on the next one.